Hello there. Today our goal is to calculate the slope of a line when we are given 2 points and a table of values. So let's get started. In order to calculate the slope of a line, we really have to be able to make sense of its definition. So let's go over the definition for the slope of a line. The slope of a line is the ratio of the change in y coordinates to the change in x coordinates. So to help you out with that definition, here's a picture. In this picture, we have 2 points that are located on a line. Our slope is how the y's are changing compared to how the x's are changing. So notice that our y's are going down by 4 compared to the x's going to the right, positive 3. So that means that our slope for this line, writing them as a ratio, aka a fraction, is -4 over positive 3. So if we are given 2 points on a line, we can actually use a formula to calculate the slope. So given 2 points, x sub 1 and y sub 1, and x subscript 2 and y subscript 2 on a line, the slope is found by using the formula m is equal to y2 minus y subscript 1 divided by x subscript 2 minus x subscript 1. So you notice that I used a couple different notations in order to describe these subscripts. So we have the numbers here, 1 and 1. Those represent that they come from the first point on the line. So you could say x subscript 1, you could say x sub 1 for short, or sometimes people just say x1. The 2's come from the second point on the line, so x subscript 2 or x sub 2 or just x2. Let's do an example. Find the slope of the line passing through the pair of points -1, 4 and 1, -2. So the first important piece to solving these problems is to always label your points. So up in the original problem, I start by labeling the first coordinate in my first point as x sub 1 and the second coordinate y sub 1. So that is my first point here, so that's why they both have the 1. So that'll help me when I'm plugging them into the formula. My second point, x sub 2 and y sub 2. So this is my second point, so that will also help me when I plug them into my slope formula, which is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So let's start plugging in these values. Well, m is the letter that we use to represent the slope, so m is equal to y2. So we can see that y2 is -2. So we're going to plug in -2 and then insert a minus sign. So even though you might have a negative point that comes next, you still need that minus sign there. Now we're going to take y sub 1. So y sub 1 over here is going to be +4. Then we divide them by x subscript 2, which is 1 minus, don't forget that minus sign, x subscript 1, which is -1. So notice that in this part of the formula we have a minus and a negative. You need both of those if your second point is negative. So let's solve this, evaluate this slope. -2 minus 4 is -6 divided by 1 minus -1 is +2. So let's simplify our slope. We can simplify them both by dividing by 2 to have -3 over 1 or just -3. So to write our answer using our variable m is equal to -3. Example 2, determine the rate of change for the set of data. So we have a table here that's representing the cost of some item and its weight in pounds. So let's figure out the rate of change. So before we start, let's determine which ones are the x's and y's. Well, our x's are going to be the row on the top, the cost, and the y's on the bottom for the weight in pounds. Let's label our points. So that means our first point, x sub 1, is 8 and y sub 1 is 11. Our second point, x sub 2 is 16 and y sub 2 is 22. Now we can plug them into our formula for slope. Now notice that the problem said rate of change. The rate of change is another way of describing the slope because we are comparing how the y's are changing compared to how the x's are changing. So we use our same formula, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x subscript 2 minus x subscript 1. So let's plug in these values for slope. Y subscript 2 is 22 minus, don't forget that minus sign, y1 is 11 over x2, 16, minus x1, 8. Now we can evaluate. 22 minus 11 is 11, and 16 minus 8 is 8. So my slope, or rate of change for this line, is 11 over 8. That means that my weight in pounds is changing compared to 11 pounds for every $8. So please try these problems on your own. The answers are on the side so that you can check them when you are completed. You're finding the slope, slope of the line passing through each pair of points. Make sure that you write down any questions that you have so that we can go over them in class tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.